One. Hi, welcome to another episode of Unapologetic. I'm your host, Ashfaq Kareem, and with me today, joining me, is Cenk Uygur. Cenk, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Good to be here.
Cenk, you're joining me. The music's just going on for a while, so just give us a second with that. Cenk, you're joining me today very soon after you've just been banned from entering the UK. The UK government say it's because some of the rhetoric that you've said and that you've made and the criticisms of Israel and also the Israel lobby's support of Congress means that you will be potentially spreading anti-Semitism and also, creating tensions, increasing community tensions. What's your response to that?
Yeah. Well, obviously it's absurd, and they're taking away our freedoms, and it's deeply ironic because Israel claims that they represent Western civilization and that they defend it in the Middle East. It looks like, no, they're attacking Western civilization in the West. They've taken away lots of freedom of speech in America, from campus protesters to anyone who would be interested in boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning Israel. That's now been made illegal in 30 states, which is a gross violation of our Constitution. And now I'm banned in the UK for criticizing Israel. What kind of absurdity is this? Is the great majority of British citizens have the same exact position as I do on Israel. Over 60% of Americans do. Literally billions of people across the world do. Are they all banned from Britain? Should they be careful about traveling to Britain because it's now become an authoritarian country and not really ruled by by itself, but apparently by the government of Israel. And if you offend the government of Israel, you might get banned from by the government of Britain. I mean, that is just patently absurd. And if they can't see how absurd that is, they're so far gone that they're hopeless.
Now you say it's absurd. I mean, I found out about this news late last night. As it was happening, you found out about this as you were actually about to board your flight at the airport. Can you just run us through that? But also, did you ever think? I mean, we've been seeing this pattern of cracking down on free speech, cracking down on people who are critical of Israel. But did you ever think it would come to this and you'd actually be banned from the UK?
No, of course I didn't think that would happen. I'm stunned by it. So when I was at the airport, they told me there was a problem with my ticket, and I was confused. And they took me to the terminal, and they said, "Wow, we've never seen this. You've been rejected by the British government. You're not allowed to enter the country, so we can't let you board the flight." I thought it was a mistake. I thought it was some sort of bureaucratic issue. I couldn't believe it. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, the Times of London came out with a story about how they banned me for criticizing Israel in the wrong way. I mean, I'm flabbergasted by it. I've been in the UK many times before, never gotten banned before, and there's just no logical explanation for it. They say that it's because I said that American Congress is controlled by Israel because 94% of congressional members have gotten campaign contributions from Israel. Well, that's a fact. That's an empirical fact from a British publication, The Guardian. So are facts now anti-Semitic? Are facts banned from the United Kingdom? Are you not allowed to say them once you enter the country? Or are you not allowed to say them ahead of time, in which case you'll be banned for saying things that are true about the country? They couldn't find a single anti-Semitic thing I've said because I haven't said anything anti-Semitic, because I'm not anti-Semitic. But they're now saying we don't care. We don't care if you're not anti-Semitic. That was just an obvious excuse we were using to ban anyone who criticizes Israel. And then, I mean, it's just so deeply ironic. How dare you say that Israelis control the American government? I presume they're saying, no, they control the British government, and that's why we banned you. And then they made up another excuse about how I said the grooming gangs didn't exist. I was just on Piers Morgan's show earlier this morning, and Piers ran the tape of me saying that grooming gangs exist. So they apparently lied to the Times to justify why they banned me. So if they're lying and they're totally factually incorrect about the facts here in America, then they have absolutely no justification at all, other than the government of Israel doesn't like Cenk Uygur, so the British people cannot even be exposed to him. That if I am in the streets of London, that there will be, as minister of the Labor Party said that there would be a serious risk to the public order, that apparently mayhem would break out if anyone were to disagree with Israel in the UK. I mean, it just doesn't get any more absurd than this.
Yeah, no, it's pretty ridiculous. I was actually due to speak to you on Thursday afternoon in studio because you were coming to the UK. You were going to be on. You're going to do a bunch of media sort of interviews and initiatives, and you were also going to speak at the Oxford Union. Your nephew Hasan has also been banned from the UK. You were both supposed to address the Oxford Union. This kind of raises all sorts of questions. You mentioned that I mean, this is absurd for democracy to do this. There'll be critics that say, okay, but they've also done this with people on the right. There were a bunch of people who were supposed to attend the United Kingdom march from Tommy Robinson. They were also not allowed in. Obviously, again, their rhetoric is very different to your rhetoric. There's a good case to make that people like Valentina Gomez, who have said, that rapist Muslims are taking over the UK, England, they took your guns, they took your swords, and they raped your woman. You have nothing else to lose, but there's still hope. You are still the majority. Obviously, that is insightful. As you mentioned, you haven't said things of that nature about any community. But just what's your response to people who would be like, this is sort of some sort of equal opportunity barring of people who could be creating some hatred or incitement?
Yeah, so there's two different issues there. Number one, I'm an American, and so I'm an enormous believer in freedom of speech. I know that Great Britain has different laws. But I would allow Valentina Gomez into the country. So I was born Muslim. I don't care what she says. It's super easy to defeat her ridiculous, bigoted opinions. Look, the minute you ban something, you give it more power. So ironically, the British government today is saying, we're worried that Cenk is right about Israel. And so we don't want a single British person to hear it, because if they do, they might be affected and not support the genocidal government of Israel. Yeah, that's true, because they are a genocidal government, and you shouldn't support them. But why is that banned? I mean, again, the great majority of British citizens agree with me. So should they ban their own citizens? I don't want to give them ideas. That might be next. And by the way, if you do travel outside the country, if you're a British citizen and you want to come back in, are they going to subject you to the same test? And what exactly is this litmus test on Israel? So, okay, so I don't believe in banning anyone for their opinions. But now when you move to the second part of it, but wait a minute, now you're putting me, the British government is putting me in the same category as people like Kanye West, who have said over-the-top anti-Semitic things about Jewish people, not about the government of Israel. Now, I say the opposite. I say governments do terrible things. You can't hold all Turkish people responsible for the government of the actions of the Turkish government, or British people for the actions of the British government, or Israelis, let alone all Jews who have a government they don't even belong to. And in fact, 63% of Jewish Americans are opposed to the current Israeli government. Are they all anti-Semites? Should they be banned from the government and from Britain? And so, but when you put me in the same category as people who do actually say things that are against Jewish people or Muslim people, or that advocate for violence, we're for nonviolence, we're religiously for nonviolence on the Young Turks, and we're for peace, and we treat every race and religion the same, and we insist on it. So if you put us in the same category, what you've done is made a mockery of your own laws. Even if you believe those laws banning people from the country, which I don't believe in. But even if you're a true believer in that, once you put someone in the category that just disagreed with a foreign government, what you've done is ruin that category and ruin that rule, because it's now become so politicized that you're just saying we're calling people we disagree with enemies of the state or enemies of the crown. I keep saying it's absurd because it really is. There's no better way to describe this Kafka-esque utter absurdity than using that word. Because if I'm guilty, then billions of people across the world are guilty and should be banned from the UK.
I mean, it speaks to a bunch of issues, what you're saying. I think it's almost like governments are kind of having their own version of cancel culture now, where there's a bunch of insightful things and they're like, okay, that is definitely insightful, so we need to tick it, and it's on one side. And so now we can't find examples on the other side that's really insightful, but there's this person that's irritating a bunch of people, or, those people are getting upset, people who support Israel, or lobbyists or media executives who may be, pro-Israel, are getting upset with the rhetoric you're making. So they're kind of filling in that thing. But I think the other trend is it's kind of speaking to the impotency of centrist groups or centrist governments, centrist parties, the fact that they are the idea of not being ideological anymore or trying to stand for anything as a government are making them sort of forget about the nuance of anything. And we kind of saw this, and you see it in the US with the Democratic Party, where you know they outside of Mamdani, you know they've really lost their ability, and it was clear in the election results that happened, you know that there's this sort of adherence to a centrist politics that means nothing. What's your response to that?
Yeah. So look, there's a lot of nuance there. So first of all, when you talk about centrism, at least as is regarding American politics and media, it doesn't really mean what you think it means. Media in this country has perverted the idea of what centrism is. So what centrism should be is what the majority of the citizens agree with. But in our media, they declare anything that the majority of Americans agree on as extreme, and they take very unpopular corporate positions, foreign government positions, and label them mainstream or centrist when the polling indicates they're no such thing at all. So, for example, they would call Joe Manchin a centrist when he opposes paid family leave. But paid family leave polls at 84% in America. So the centrist position would be to be in favor of paid family leave. But our media says, no, that's a radical progressive position. And the politicians that are opposed to it are centrist or moderate. So they've perverted and perhaps potentially purposely lied about what is our centrist position in order to deceive the American people into taking radical positions that are in favor of the donor class. So our media in America is obsessed with pleasing the donor class, the wealthy and the powerful. They deliver the so-called news from purely the perspective of the wealthy and the powerful. They believe that protecting the status quo, which is now deeply corrupt in America, is the objective position. No, that is a political position you're taking. It is one of massive bias. So New York Times, CNN, and almost all the other traditional media in America are biased and more biased than almost anything online. They declare positions that are absolutely radical, including us funding the government of Israel to be centrist when there's no such thing. Over 60% of Americans are critical of Israel, have a negative view of them, do not want to fund them. Nobody thinks that we gave them over $320 billion because the American people just couldn't wait to give hundreds of billions of dollars to the Israelis. Everybody knows it's because our Congress is completely corrupted, and not just by the Israelis. Our Supreme Court basically legalized bribery. So Big Pharma is the biggest lobby, bigger than the Israeli lobby in America, and we can't negotiate drug prices because drug companies have completely legally bribed almost all of our politicians, and our media lies to us 24/7 and pretends it isn't happening. And they say absurd things like the politicians are honest and honorable and that the money barely affects them. You think millions of dollars barely affects American politicians? I mean, who would be such an awful reporter, a disastrous reporter, as to make that absurd claim? So, it's not in favor of centrism that they make these decisions. They make these decisions in favor of the wealthy and the powerful. You never get banned for, criticizing the poor or the middle class. You only get banned for criticizing people who are in power. In fact, think about it. For time immemorial in the United Kingdom, the gravest offense was insulting the king. Well, we just found out who the king is in Britain because I can criticize Great Britain all I like. I can criticize King Charles, but I can't criticize Israel. So now if you live in the United Kingdom, you know who your new king is.
Okay, you make an important point, and I think it's fair to say that if Israel's genocide in Gaza didn't occur, and as a result, the kind of things you're saying, and many other people around the world are actually saying, you wouldn't have actually been banned from the UK. Now, when I was going to speak to you on Thursday before this occurred, one of the things I was going to speak to you about was the fact that, is the thinking in some progressive circles now where you now have seen, because of Israel's genocide in Gaza, you've seen people like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, even Megyn Kelly come out and sort of clearly be extremely critical of Israel. At the same time, there are voices within the progressive left or Democrats, specifically in the US, more so than global voices, who are, we're still very suspicious of these voices because rightfully so, these people still have some views which are, not globally pluralistic, not necessarily representative of all cultures, very much still entrenched in a thinking which is protectionist of white identity. Do you think, given the fact that we've now reached the stage where, honestly, like you're saying, voices that are the majority like yours are being shut out and banned from countries, that kind of rhetoric is maybe even more out of touch? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So look, this one's frustrating on a couple of counts. So first, I don't think that anyone, whether they're a left-wing host, right-wing host, or whatever it might be, can unilaterally cancel people trying to help Palestinians, Lebanese, Iranians, and say, no, we reject Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene's help on Israel or the war. Well, they're not in a position to reject that. They don't speak for the Muslim community. They don't speak for the anti-war community. So they can reject them on a personal level. If you don't want to talk to them, great, don't talk to them. It's a free country. But for them to say that it's disqualifying or try to cancel people who do talk to them is, once again, absurd. And so number two is they say, well, if you agree with Tucker Carlson on being anti-war or being concerned about the amount of power that Israel has inside America, then what? I don't even know what the claim is. Then I have to agree with them on all of their positions? No, I don't. Why am I not allowed to agree with one thing and not allowed to not agree on something else? Like I literally don't understand what they're saying. So do I have to agree with someone 100% before I ever talk to them? If we disagree 1% or 10% or 15% or 50%, what's the standard? Are we not allowed to talk to one another? So this whole idea of don't talk to other people or reject their help if you disagree with them on something else is preposterous. I'm on the left. If you're on the left, don't let that idea take hold. And if people tell you, no, you must reject people saying that Israel has too much power, we've given too much money to Israel, that they've started too many wars, that they've done a horrific genocide. Not only that, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, Tom Massey are all saying, don't hate Muslims. We were wrong. They told us to hate Muslims, and they did propaganda to brainwash us to hate Muslims. Don't do that. You want me to reject that? That doesn't make any sense at all. I'm not going to reject that. I'm going to welcome that with open arms. And no, I'm not foolish or robotic enough to say that, hey, if someone disagrees with me on something else, I will reject their agreement on this issue, or more importantly, on a vote. Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene were voting with us to end the funding of Israel. Right now, there's a bill where they're going to try to merge the American military with the Israeli military. That is insane. And Tom Massey's still a congressman, and he's fighting super hard against that. And you want me to reject that kind of help? No, that is a weird position. And it's almost a pro-Israel, pro-genocide position, and I can't stand it.
Okay, I hear everything you're saying. I think those who make the argument will say, well, we agree with you. We're not asking you to reject their help on these issues, on Islamophobia or anti-Muslim bigotry on Palestine, but they'll say we kind of still wary of their rhetoric. Like they're not our allies. We accept them, and we accept and are grateful for the fact that they're getting behind the Palestinians or being anti-war, or being the anti-Iran war, and they're saying more interesting things and more nuanced things about Muslims now. But we don't really see them as allies. What would be your response to that?
Well, it depends on what we mean by allies, right? So they make it seem like we have to vote for them for president, or we have to marry them or something. No, nobody asked you to do any of that. They asked you to just simply accept yes for an answer on these issues. So are they allies on these issues? Well, of course they are. If you say that you reject their help on these issues, that's maniacal. I don't understand that. If you say, well, if I accept their them being allies on this issue, I have to love them, or I have to say that they're allies on every issue, why? Did we lose our ability to use independent judgment? What is this blanket rule, and why does it exist, and who created it? And did we ever vote on it on the left? My guess is if that you ask people on the left, real voters, whether they're in the US or the UK, hey, would you accept their help on this incredibly important issues of fighting against the war, fighting against genocide, or you have to reject them entirely because they're not good enough allies generically? I would guess that the overwhelming majority of the left would agree with me. So I don't think they have a leg to stand on. And I think it's a way of trying to cancel Israel's critics in a roundabout way. And I'm sure that some people mean it earnestly, because I've debated those folks, and they want to cancel anyone who doesn't agree with 100% of what they say. They've done that to me. They say, okay, no, you disagreed on 2% of issues, so you're now officially canceled. Who the hell are you to cancel anyone? They don't speak for the left. They're definitely a minority within the left. So they can go and yell about how they've canceled Tucker Carlson and they won't accept any help from Tom Massey or Marjorie Taylor Greene, but they don't speak for Muslims. They don't speak for the left. They don't speak for the average person. They only speak for cancel culture and the extreme fringes of the left.
Now, one of the things you were going to do while you were, supposedly allowed into the UK was you were going to go and address the Oxford Union and speak to their members. What were you hoping to actually address them about, and what were you hoping to? What did they have planned for you, and what are those Oxford members kind of missing out on now?
Yeah, so I was coming to the UK for a number of reasons. So I was going to appear in media like this program, and I was going to speak at South by Southwest London, and that was about digital media because I'm an expert in digital media. It had nothing to do with Israel. But at Oxford, I was going to give two speeches, one by myself and one with my nephew Hasan together. And it would have been a nice moment for our family to have two members of the same family speaking at Oxford together. Instead, we are, I guess, the most dangerous family to the British government, since I believe we're the only family with two members who've been banned from the United Kingdom. So what was all of this about? Well, was I going to give a speech about the war and Israel? Yes, at Oxford I was. And so one of the things that I want to do, and if we can somehow do it virtually, or if this can be resolved in time, that I'd love to do in person, is give a speech about how the whole world should unite to support Palestinians. Not in hatred of Israel, and definitely not in hatred of Jewish people. We believe in equality for Jews, Muslims, Christians. We don't want anyone to have special privileges, and we don't want anyone to be discriminated against. And we've clarified that on the Young Turks literally hundreds of times, right? But should people chant free, free Palestine everywhere? Yes. And one of the things that I'd like to make a suggestion on, and I'll do it right here, is I think at World Cup games and at soccer games and football games all across the world, we should chant free, free Palestine. And why do I say that? Because our voice is stifled by our own governments. Not only will they not listen to us, now they'll ban people from your country, even if they agree with a majority of your citizens. So our voice is stifled in every way in opposition to Israel. But imagine if in all the World Cup games, all of the fans are chanting "Free, free Palestine." That would send such a loud and clear message to the world. We're tired of this. We're tired of Israel abusing the Palestinians and our government's paying for that abuse. We're tired of 58 years of brutal occupation. Please stop calling Israel a democracy. It is an insult on the humanity of the Palestinians. 5.5 million Palestinians have been the prisoners, the hostages of the Israeli government in a brutal dictatorship in the occupied territories. To call that a democracy is an affront to their humanity. So, and I would suggest that you do this at all sporting events. So we're going to have the NBA championship here in America. Imagine if in Madison Square Garden in the middle of New York City, they're chanting "Free, free Palestine." The Dallas Mavericks are owned by Miriam Adelson, who is one of the biggest supporters of Israel and has legally bribed so many of our politicians, including Donald Trump, given over $300 million to represent Israel instead of America. And Trump says it on tape. She cares more about Israel than she cares about America. Trump said that. And Trump said he moved the U.S. embassy in Israel to satiate the Adelson family because they gave him so much money. Is he going to be banned from Britain, by the way, for saying things that are considered anti-Semitic tropes and then actually doing them? No, we should all band together and voice our opposition to these policies, not just of Israel, but our own governments in supporting Israel when the majorities of both the United States and the UK are adamantly against funding Israel any further. So chant it wherever you can, "Free, free Palestine."
Okay, thanks for your time. Just a final question. It's a bit personal, but not too personal. So you mentioned earlier that it would be a great moment for you and your family if Hasan and your nephew were able to speak at the Oxford Union. I think many people, I think for me myself as well, I knew there was a relationship between yourself and Hasan. I didn't know he was actually your nephew, but I mean he's now also grown a lot in terms of being a voice which many people, even in the US, are trying to stifle. They see him as very edgy. They see him as someone who's going to destabilize society. You would obviously, I mean, while you without taking credit away from him, would probably find that a bit absurd. But just how do you feel about how he's come along and the impact that he's having sort of in the space which you obviously created as a forerunner with your development of the Young Turks now almost 2 decades ago?
Yeah, so look, Hasan and I sometimes disagree on some of the things he says or our ideas. In fact, we do this fun thing called Thanksgiving every Thanksgiving, where I go on a stream because dinner's at his house, and we debate sometimes for 3-4 hours. But am I proud of Hasan for the incredible success that he's had? Absolutely. And so he's been a phenom, an enormous star. Why is he this popular? Because he's saying things that a lot of people agree with. And so you don't have to agree with them in order for you to realize how so many other people do. So that it's now an empirical fact, right? There's no question that millions of people across the world think that Hasan is right about a lot of these issues. So when they try to ban him as well as me, they're basically admitting defeat. They're saying we cannot counter your ideas intellectually. Hasan is too intelligent for us. Cenk is too factually correct for us. So we surrender. On behalf of the British government, we surrender. Since we cannot defeat your ideas in the marketplace of ideas, we will try to ban you so that no one in the UK hears you. Well, now they're going to hear us even more. And hopefully one day Hasan and I get to deliver that speech at Oxford together. But no, we are not a dangerous family. We are not a threat to the public order. I've seen Hasan in public many times. Since we're family, we went out to dinner just a couple of nights ago, and mayhem didn't break out. So, I mean, come on. If you're British, you've got to be sitting there thinking, really, the minute Cenk steps off the plane or Hasan steps off the plane, we're going to have a disturbance of the public order? Or is what the British government is saying, no, we're going to have a disturbance in the order of things that we like, where certain wealthy and powerful institutions are in charge. That's the status quo. That's the order they want to preserve, because they don't want to give voice to the majority of British citizens and the majority of American citizens. So, yes, I'm very proud of Hasan. I think he's done an amazing job, and you should check out his show as well as the Young Turks.
Cenk, thank you so much for your time. I hope that you do manage. I'm sure you're probably undergoing some legal process to kind of overturn this ruling and get unbanned from visiting the UK, and that you can visit soon and can deliver that address at Oxford. I'm not sure if you'll be in time for the South by Southwest conference, but also interviewing you in person as I was supposed to someday as well. So best of luck with all of that, and thanks once again for your time.
I appreciate it, and best of luck to the British people in liberating themselves from this government that says you must serve a different foreign government. So I hope you achieve freedom so that I could join you in that freedom one day.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cenk.
Thank you.